Story 1. Sleeping to avoid living even when you are not tired. Story 2. Completely tired all the time, even when you don't do anything. Story 3. I am constantly in a world inside my head. I struggle with living like this. My mind and body are rarely in the same place. Story 4. Feeling like it's a chore to do things you used to love. Story 5. Snoozing for an eternity because you know what awaits you when you get up and face the day. Story 6. I was driving, as I frequently do for work, and realized I did not have Spotify or the radio on. I am a music nut. I had been driving that way for hours and noticed I had several days like that. I simply was not interested in music, and that was a surprising wake-up call. Not listening to music is not in itself a diagnosis of depression. Even when mentally healthy, I sometimes drive, cook, or hang out in silence. That can be normal. What was unusual for me is that I have listened to music since I was very young and really got into it around age 9 or 10. Music is probably my main hobby. In my job, where I am on the road for anywhere from 30 minutes to 6 hours a day, I listen to music whenever I am not on the phone for work. One day, after driving for several hours, I felt numb and realized no music was playing. That made me think about how long this had been happening, and I realized I had been driving like that for a few weeks. I also love to cook and sing along, make up lyrics and sing to my son, but I had stopped doing that as well. Already concerned about depression, I discussed this with my psychologist and my primary care physician. After several discussions, they agreed that I am clinically depressed and that losing interest in things you once loved is a sign of depression. It was one of the first real wake-up calls for me. Story 7. Depression does not scream. It would require too much energy. Story 8. I was losing interest in literally everything and opted to just sleep instead. At one point, I couldn't even bring myself to watch television or Netflix and so on. I just did not care. The same was true for being on my phone. Then I lost interest in being awake, and sleep, beautiful sleep, became the answer. So I would say that, laughing out loud. Story 9. You are gradually pulling away from everything. You hang out with friends less frequently. You start doing the bare minimum at work. Eventually you stop caring altogether, and all you want to do is be alone. Story 10. Wanting to sleep but not truly sleeping. Wanting to eat for comfort yet not actually doing so. Not wanting to be alone but also not wanting company. Wanting to go out while also wanting to stay home. Wanting to take a bath but not once inside. All of the above reversed and 10 times over. Story 11. You wait for each day to end without a reason because you are not awaiting any specific event. Story 12. Most normal people don't ask themselves the question, why do I have to exist? While lying in bed thinking about how horrible everything is. Life isn't a fun adventure for us. It's a responsibility, like paying bills or doing chores. We are not living, but merely walking around wondering why we are alive. Story 13. Day-to-day changes in behavior can be significant. Some days a person may feel joyful, motivated, and energetic. The next day they may be grumpy, demotivated, and tired. Frequent mood changes can be an important sign of depression and can affect many aspects of their life. Story 14. I was hungry, but after a minor inconvenience, I lost my appetite. Story 15. Not showering, losing appetite, and staying in a dark room. Story 16. There is a version of the 1,000-yard stare that people who suffer from it severely can develop, but it is usually recognizable only to others who are depressed or who have experienced it themselves. Story 17. The isolation is horrible, but I do not want to interact with anyone. Story 18. Waking up, your first thought is only a few more hours until it is socially acceptable to go to bed again. Story 19. Poor hygiene. Messy room. Not wanting to get out of bed. Feeling numb. Questioning life or your existence. Avoiding social interactions. Story 20. Mindlessly indulging in anything for small hits of dopamine, such as food, cigarettes, alcohol, or sex and masturbation, leaves you without the baseline to feel happy. You only feel not bad. Poor hygiene is a big one. I remember crying after getting hair ties stuck in my hair. I did not have the energy to put on makeup for about a year. Rotting in bed, binge watching YouTube or Twitch where someone was talking to me made me feel like I was not alone. It helped on days when I did not go outside, and those creators would not let me down like real friends might. Being outside, especially driving, felt very loud and overwhelming because it had been so long since I had been out. The only energy I had was to be mercilessly cruel to myself because I felt like a failure, compared myself to everyone, and made up stories about what they must think of me. Story 21. You get promoted, your family loves you, it is spring and everything is good. Yet you want to die. You have the money to pay rent but face eviction because you cannot walk 20 feet from your apartment door to drop it in the mailbox. If you are thinking about harming yourself, contact local emergency services or a crisis line right now. In the United States, call or text 988. If you are outside the United States, contact your local emergency number or local crisis services. Story 22. Drinking alcohol to slow your brain down in response to all the regrets, uncertainty, and sadness you experience every day. Story 23. Mindlessly scrolling Reddit and other social media even when it is not fulfilling. Story 24. Constantly listening to music or consuming media around the clock to avoid thinking about anything else and to block out negative thoughts. Story 25. Not caring that much anymore applies to many things. For example, not doing the dishes, keeping a messy home, waking up whenever, snoozing endlessly, and waiting for the day to end. Story 26. More seriously, there are many signs. Lethargy and anhedonia, meaning loss of interest in almost everything, are usually among the first. Sleep quality declines, either because of oversleeping and still feeling tired or because of difficulty falling or staying asleep. The anhedonia may extend to appetite, or the person may eat out of boredom as a substitute for activities they used to enjoy. Personal hygiene also declines. Story 27. I stay up far too late playing games and scrolling on my phone because going to bed means getting up in the morning and doing it all over again. Story 28. I am watching the same sitcoms on repeat and have no energy to start anything new. Story 29. When everything feels the same, even things that are supposed to be fun and exciting feel empty. Story 30. You know that friend who's always checking in on you to make sure you're doing okay? The "I got you, don't worry about it" friend? The life of the party. The one who's always smiling and joking? Check on them. Story 31. Waking up and immediately thinking about when you will be able to go back to sleep. Story 32. Someone who stops showing up to activities they would normally enjoy. Depression can make it difficult to feel joy in things you once liked. That can lead to guilt or resentment when you try to participate and make you avoid the very activities that could help you recover. Story 33. Have you ever seen the light leave someone's eyes? Maybe not the moment it left, but when you look at a friend who has been absent or silent for a while and notice that they just do not feel the same. Their laugh seems to come from behind a cheap, invisible wall and dies early. Their engagement is surface level, intended only to satisfy the most basic audience expectation. That is when they are trying. At this point, their inner life is in critical condition. It is make or break. If they get the help they need, no matter the form, you will see the sunrise in their heart once again and feel your old friend again. If it goes the other way, neither of you find your way back to one another. Sad. Story 34. I just sit on the couch and stare into nothing. I hate myself for doing nothing, and I cannot seem to move my body. Story 35. When your chest feels like it was punched so hard that the pain has not gone away for years. Story 36. That feeling when you wake up and are deeply disappointed simply because you woke up. I am currently seeing my 5th therapist and trying to reach the other side everyone insists exists, where things are somehow better. Life is hard, and the call of oblivion is a siren song. Story 37. Anger. A short fuse, irritability, snapping at people. I know people who thought they were just bad because the smallest things set them off. Once they began managing their depression, though, it was a complete turnaround. If you are easily infuriated, talk to your doctor. It is a common symptom of depression. Story 38. Dissociation. If you see someone staring off into space next time, they may be dealing with that. It's what I've experienced for most of my life. Story 39. A person who always seems happy may be burying negative emotions to present a strong face and may feel unable to talk about them. No one is in a good mood all the time. Story 40. Consistently deciding that socializing is neither useful nor enjoyable. Story 41. Actively not looking for work when you are drowning in debt. Story 42. I always know my depression is coming back when my house is a mess and I do not care to clean. Story 43. Nothing. Just nothingness. Like boiling a frog, it creeps up slowly, innocuous at first. All around, people complain about their mental health struggles, but slowly and silently those with severe depression disappear into the shadows. One group bangs on the doors of their general practitioners and therapists, loudly declaring their depression. The others just muddle along, dropping non-essential activities such as socializing, cleaning, and personal hygiene so they can still function at work. The former, not content with shouting about depression, seem filled with helium, enabling them to bounce through life. The latter fill with heavy lead in their legs. Walking becomes a chore. The effort to get up is overwhelming. Asking for help is too much, so they continue to slide into the dark abyss. Talk about mental health and make it a priority. If you feel you cannot cope, ask for help. There is a paradox in mental health support. If you ask for help early, others may assume it is not real depression. Asking for help when things are crashing down can be just too much effort. The slide into darkness continues, and self-help becomes a distant memory of a time when you had the energy to make a phone call, make a doctor's appointment, or take your medication. The lead-filled body is finally dragged deep into a black hole of despair. It is not empty. It is filled with a black, heavy, enveloping pain where time becomes elastic. You exist in 30-second bursts that feel like an eternity, then weeks pass without so much as a blink. All ability to think is gone. The focus and brain function needed for the simplest tasks have disappeared. You cannot watch television, read, talk, eat, or drink. Suicide is no longer an option because that requires planning. Sometimes the sticky black cloud shifts and allows a brief moment of respite, during which someone might get up and jump from a window or a bridge. No note, no warning, no plan. Perhaps a frantic scrawl on whatever is at hand that says sorry. Depression does not scream. It is silent. The hand that slowly takes hold and drags you down, silently and stealthily, until it is too late. Story 44. Loss of appetite. Feeling chronically bored. Feeling empty. Loss of interest in activities that were previously enjoyable. Story 45. I constantly crack jokes, especially at my own expense, and sometimes about my trauma. I did not realize how off-putting this was to people until someone told me. They were very angry that I kept speaking negatively about myself. I have been clinically depressed for so long that I did not realize my coping mechanism was so harmful. Story 46. Honestly, there are many stages of depression. One stage that strongly indicates depression is a lack of communication. Story 47. A severe loss of interest in hobbies and pastimes is a strong sign of depression. Nothing indicates depression more than someone who is completely indifferent to their favorite activities. Story 48. Feel angry at the sunlight, like it's taunting you with its brightness. Story 49. Often nothing. It is silent and no one notices, or if they do, they assume you are lazy, a flake, or a winner. Many of us with depression have been told all our lives that our symptoms are a sign of personal moral failure, and no one wants to hear about our problems, so we are told to suck it up because nobody likes a killjoy. We learn to hide it very well. We suffer in silence until we cannot cope anymore and have a mental health crisis, and everyone is very surprised. I had no idea. They seemed fine. I cannot tell you how many times I have told someone I have depressive disorder, and they say, "Wow, really? You do not look depressed." Well, you do not look like a clueless ableist, but here we are. Story 50. Your average screen time this week is 14 hours per day. Story 51. You wear the same clothes you sleep in every day, do not shower, and do not even brush your teeth. You're not living, you're just existing. I've gone through this, and when you're that far in, it takes a lot to get out. Story 52. You know that person who is always trying to cheer others up without seeming to be happy themselves. They do not want you to feel what they feel. Story 53. I am not turning the lights on. I am just leaving the TV on to get around. Story 54. I think it feels different for every person. For me, it is crying in the car on the way to work, sometimes at work, and on the way home without knowing why. Not wanting to go home but having to because my child is waiting. Fake smiles. Listening to only one kind of music. Not wanting to socialize. Pretending to be okay, playful, and happy in front of my child because I do not want him to know I am in pain. Falling asleep within 5 minutes from exhaustion. End of story. Story 55. Needing a nap even though you have done nothing all day. Story 56. A steadily increasing, all-encompassing apathy makes life lose its flavor. You spend eternity gathering a variety of spices for your unique taste in life, and suddenly your brain says, I am British now and nothing sounds good anymore. Story 57. Obsession with escapist mediums such as video games and film franchises. To be clear, I do not mean being a fan or even a super dedicated fan. I mean using them to fill a void rather than merely to pass the time. Story 58. You look at a box of microwavable corn dogs. You notice the instructions have 2 steps. You decide it is too much effort and go to sleep instead of fueling your horrible meat prison. Story 59. Messy house. Missed appointments. Flaking out on friends. Staying up all night and sleeping all day randomly. Disappearing from social circles. Being unable to pay bills or manage daily responsibilities. Story 60. Going to bed at 7 p.m. to avoid being awake. Having your first beer by 8 a.m. despite having no history of alcohol issues. Crying by 11 a.m. Story 61. A close friend told me that she needed to unplug for a while and that she would talk to me when she had enough energy for something other than keeping her head above water. She may be experiencing mild to moderate depression. Story 62. I experienced a rapid decline in self-care. There was a period when I struggled to brush my teeth and shower regularly as a 21-year-old college student. It was rough. Story 63. Having zero sense of personal style. I'm not saying you must always have coordinated outfits, have your hair styled or whatever. Simple baggy clothes, no makeup, natural hair, a ponytail, and similar looks are all valid styles. I'm talking about people who really do not even look when grabbing clothes or do not check their face in a mirror before leaving. People who genuinely have no preference for the color, texture, shape, or fit of their clothes. I understand that most people do not take clothing seriously, but generally there is some preference, such as liking dark colors, only wearing long sleeves, or preferring Crocs. If you genuinely do not care about any aspect of your appearance, it may be a sign of depression. Story 64. When you wake up in the morning and realize you are still there, the tears start slowly sliding down your cheeks as you close your eyes again and hope that this time it is forever. Story 65. Most comments I see are from a first-person perspective. From a third-person perspective, in my opinion, signs include someone who, compared to their past self, seems to be neglecting their appearance. Someone who slowly stops attending social events. Someone whose reactions are slower or less enthusiastic than expected. Someone who shows all of the above signs but is still smiling. Keep in mind this is relative to how the person behaved in the past. Some people are naturally not enthusiastic. That does not mean they are depressed. However, if someone has always been a highly strung person and suddenly stops being like that, it could be a sign that something is wrong, especially when combined with other signs. Story 66. Wearing the same outfit every day, not washing it until the stains are obvious. You get into a texture war with your body and a single shirt, nightgown, or pair of leggings becomes the only thing you slide on. It screams depression, but no one notices, especially if you work from home. Story 67. Crying on the way to work, holding it together during the day, then crying on the way home. Or is that just me? Story 68. Being a fully functional, even successful, adult while feeling completely dead inside and looking forward to nothing in life. This can manifest as working intensively during the day and coming to a complete stop at the end of it. You do nothing, want nothing, and wait for it to pass. Dead eyes, isolation, and a ragged appearance are common signs. Story 69. Jesus Christ, the comments are a play-by-play of the phases I go through every day. I'm going for a walk. Story 70. I have been socially isolated for almost a year. I am very irritable and have low patience. My short-term memory is poor and my long-term memory is also affected, especially short-term. I have very little interest in anything or anyone, not even using my phone occasionally. I prefer to stare at a wall or sleep. Then the anxiety starts. I cannot sleep without sound or light anymore. I keep a fan on, wear an eye mask even though I need light in the room, and have the television on low because I need someone with me. I wake up every hour with vivid, realistic, terror-filled anxiety dreams. Story 71. One sign of my depression is complete apathy and an unwillingness to offer suggestions. For example, when asked what I want for dinner, I say, doesn't matter. When asked what I want to do on a nice day, I say, anywhere is fine. When asked about a movie, I say, looks good. These small responses can go unnoticed by friends, family, and even myself, but I recognize I give them when my depression is not doing well. Story 72. When you laugh really hard at something very dark and go to share it with someone, you stop yourself because you realize that if you showed them, they could safely assume you are not chemically balanced upstairs. Story 73. Unemployed and not looking for work or simply not motivated. Story 74. I do not have a clear reason for my poor memory, sleep problems, and eating difficulties. Story 75. People with depression typically experience alcohol abuse, social withdrawal from friends and family, and constant comparison to idealized examples of others. Story 76. I've been sleeping on the couch for 2 months because I can't find the energy or enthusiasm to put away the laundry on my bed. Story 77. Not having the energy to do, watch, or listen to anything you usually enjoy. Not having the energy or the urge to maintain hygiene. Not having the energy to talk to anyone, even people you are close to. Sleeping a lot because being awake seems exhausting. Listening to very sad music, relating to it, or crying. Feeling like you do not deserve good things. Feeling like people would be better off without you or would not miss you. Story 78. Putting on a pair of pants for the day feels like climbing Mount Everest. Story 79. Talking to myself. On the few occasions when I was not depressed, I was always abroad for some reason and not on holiday. During those times, I did not talk to myself. These days, it is a constant battle between good and evil in my head during all waking hours. Story 80. Procrastination, followed by intermittent panic about the tasks I am avoiding, then further avoidance, and the cycle repeats. Story 81. Telling strangers you have just met your entire life story. Story 82. I am reading all these comments and I feel a sense of disconnect because they describe who I used to be, not who I am now. I still have severe anxiety, but I no longer feel depressed every day. I have a long way to go, but I have found a passion, and I am no longer sleeping all the time or living in a state of nothingness. Things do get better, and the days do get brighter. 3 years ago, my death anxiety would not let me take my own life, but I dealt with suicidal thoughts and agoraphobia daily. I hope my message gives people some hope. Story 83. Hoarding, poor hygiene such as not cleaning or showering, refusing to go out, suicidal thoughts, living in the past, and large weight gain or loss. I gained 150 pounds by eating a half-gallon of ice cream every day. Story 84. You look down at your nails and realize they are all cracked and chipped or way too long. You didn't notice and didn't care. Story 85. What people who have never had depression misunderstand is that they think it feels like being sad all the time. It does not. What it feels like is after something terrible happens and you have a very hard cry, there is that moment afterward when you are exhausted and completely numb to everything. Someone could hurt your dog in front of you and it would not even register. Feels like that all the time. It is apathy perfected with a heaping side of exhaustion. It is horrible, but everything has its silver lining. Looking back on it now, it is in some ways the worst superpower imaginable. When you truly do not care about anything, nothing can hurt you. There is an invincibility there. Now that I have managed it, I struggle a little with anxiety because there are actual stakes to my life. I am worried about things because I care, which is a new blessing and curse. Life is about choosing your poison. Story 86. Sometimes you focus on the bad things instead of remembering the good times. You feel alone all the time while also having problems with other people. Alcoholism, drug use, and constant crying can follow. I have depression and have had it for years. I have refused to take medication. It is very hard to explain exactly what it is like. You become quick to anger, thinking everyone is out to get you or will hurt you, when really most people just want to laugh, not harm you. At the same time, you do not want to hate anything because it is too much energy to waste on hate when you could spend that energy on love. Story 87. People criticize Dane Cook, but he was the one who came up with the single guy bit where he described taking a light bulb from room to room based on need. It is not directly what we are talking about, but it is very adjacent and shows how wacky not respecting yourself can get. Story 88. Smokes and drinks excessively in an attempt to self-medicate. Story 89. Starting to think I'm depressed after reading these comments. Story 90. People are frequently canceling party invitations or avoiding going out. It is not that they do not want to attend. It is because they are depressed. Story 91. What screams, I have depression. I was standing in the corner of a room at a depression screening at a hospital clinic, with tears streaming down my face. The psychologist took one look at me and said, "You stay here and talk to me after the meeting." It was the beginning of a total turnaround in my sad little life. It was normal for me to have tears flowing for no apparent reason. Get the right psychologist and the right medications and it can change your whole life. In 5 sessions, he gave me a new way to think about things that had bothered me since childhood. The medications I started lifted a black cloud that had been hanging over me since I was 2 years old, as far back as I can remember feeling bad. I sometimes wish I could go back and let people from my past see how much I have improved. I was 40 when I finally made the move to happiness, and I am almost 70 now. Do not waste any more time. Help yourself now. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.